Hey there, welcome to another episode of Watch Soup. I am Bobby Legs, and I am joined by my co-host from the Watchdog podcast, Clayton. Now, Clayton, before we get started, both you and I have had our little ailments in the last like week or so. So, chat and anybody who's watching this, we really appreciate you sticking with us. For me and my other channel, haven't had a couple of I missed a couple of live streams because I've had this bronchitis for a while, and at night it's been tough. So I feel like I'm an old man at a diner. You ever sit next to like some like an old couple in a diner and that's all they're talking about is like what hurts them, what
Oh
ails
yeah.
them. I feel like I'm at that age now. You
Well,
know?
a lot of my friends I went to high school with, I'm still like are my best friends and I
Yeah,
they live in Michigan, so I talk to them on the phone and I feel like the first 10 minutes of all of our conversations are, yeah, I got to get the blood pressure down. Yeah,
yeah,
boy, got blood work done. Colonoscopy this year, like
yeah,
yeah, all that kind of stuff, right?
yeah. I had a colonoscopy, not on my 49th birthday, right? And like the prep sucks, right? Because you got to drink all that fluid and whatnot. But like I've never been under anesthesia before, and it
Mm,
was trippy, man. It was trippy. Like I'm there, ready to have them do their thing, and then the guy's like talking to me. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna count down, and you're gonna be," and then I was like, "God!" And then like
yeah.
next thing I know, I wake up and I'm like, like it felt like that. It felt like like a second had passed, and I was goofy for a couple of hours. But yeah, no, I mean we're at that age, Clayton. We're
Yep.
you know
45 is actually the new age for colonoscopy. So
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
hit
That's
that
that's true.
now. So, yep.
The worst part is like then they say like if you have a clean build how you can wait like another 10 years or something like that, whatever. But like for me they found like one polyp, like just one little polyp, and they're like, oh, okay, see you in 5 years. I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
It's like, "Yeah, everything's good, but we'll see you. We'll see." Look, the upside is like when you, especially for you, Clayton, where you got to look forward to when you turn 50, is that when you do something like physical and or you look like you're in slim and good shape, people are like, "Oh my god, that dude is 50." Like if you run like a marathon, they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, Clayton, he ran that dude is 50. That's incredible."
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't get that kind of like accolades when you were 30. It's like, "Oh yeah, he's 30. Yeah, of course he's gonna run a marathon."
Right.
But with the older you get, right? We're at this sweet spot where we're like really, if you're athletic and do something, pretty impressive, it really, because of the age factor, there's like it's like a line here, and then it just meets to like perfection, and everybody's like really impressed, right?
Yes.
So
I
eh,
experienced that, on Thanksgiving. I did a turkey trot, and, I finished, like there were several hundred people above, in the 40 to 49 range, and I think I finished, like, top 10 in that range because I did,
yes,
like, a 21-minute 5K, and,
yeah,
everyone was like, "Wow, that's good for your age," but I know so many runners, like, I run with some guys in my pacing group who are in their mid-60s, and, I mean, I think on a they could beat me, so,
and
yeah.
that's like amazing, right?
Yeah,
60, and he's like running like a
yeah,
20-minute like
yeah,
5K, 5K.
yeah,
Holy mackerel, that's impressive. That's
yeah.
I'm impressed.
There's some people who are, running is like one of those things you kinda get better with age if you because you get
Oh, interesting.
smarter. It's so mental
Uh-huh.
because you go out, like, fast and then you kill yourself and you hit the wall and then that's it. So, the smarter you get at running, you can actually improve with age
Interesting.
if your body cooperates.
Yeah, then I would imagine there's a
Yeah.
point then where your body just like,
Right.
it turns into
Yeah.
crap, and
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter how smart you are,
You
right?
just maintaining is more and more important, just to
Oh,
get
yeah.
to where you to what used to be effortless now takes a lot of effort just to maintain.
Alright. Well, thankfully, we just finished the old man part of the
Right.
episode. What do you have on your wrist tonight?
Old man, eating soup.
Yeah.
Back with the, Citizen,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
I can
How many
never
days in a
think
row?
of
You
not
know?
too many. I've been
Okay.
alternating with my other watches now,
Yeah.
so, been wearing the Vogard. I'll probably wear
Mhm.
the, FXD this coming week. So, yeah, alternating. No crazy streaks anymore.
Yep, yep. I got the Gerard Perregaux, the Seahawk. This is I'm gonna talk
Nice. One
watch
of your earliest.
yeah, I'm gonna talk about this watch a little bit. You know, it involves some of the themes that we have here going this evening. Hey, let's say hello to chat before we get onto the soup. Hey, Bill is here. How you doing? Maison is here. Good to see you. Nate Dog, good to see you. Maison, he's picking out a watch. I've gone with my Moser Heritage Funky Blue Fume this evening. Oh, very nice
Nice.
choice. Mr. Caliber, good to see you. Hey, Nate, it's 49. I'm with you. Yeah, you know how it is. And as I was saying, 10 years ago, I was under the knife, a drill actually, for an 8-hour operation to remove an acoustic neuroma. Am I saying that right? Neuroma? I don't know what that is. It sounds like
Perfect.
something to do with the ears. Acoustic, maybe, acoustic neuroma. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a
Let us
good
know.
guess though.
Yeah, Um, all right. Hey, so we're going with the two video format because it's the two of us. But you actually picked a part one and a part two this evening,
Yeah.
and so let's go over the part one here. The Pete McConvill came out with a video this week. Has Rolex peaked and is Tudor in trouble? Analyzing the Morgan Stanley. I think it's like a yearly report on the watch industry. Go take it away.
Yeah, so I love this. I geek out over this stuff. Really fascinated by the business side. Usually it's released around Watches and Wonders, so it's a little earlier this year, I guess.
Mhm,
But so yeah, he's comparing 2021 data versus 2023. It seems like every other year they do a more comprehensive, like top 50 Swiss
mhm,
watch brands, as opposed to like the top 20 that we got last year. So you get a much better idea of the trends, what's happening when you have 50. I'm always curious, like what's, beyond 20? Like what does a brand like Oris do or Hamilton
yeah.
or that kind of stuff? So answered in this. Um, so he starts off with Rolex. Rolex was number one this year. I think they passed the $10 billion turnover in Swiss francs. So crazy. That they can't be stopped, right? They're
Right.
annihilating the competition. But Pete, he's not so sure about that. He says, if we aren't at peak Rolex now, we might be soon.
Mhm,
So he looked back in 2017, Rolex sold 800,000 watches. They had 18.5% of the Swiss watch market share. In 2021, where we're going to do the main comparisons here with 2023, in 2021, production expanded to a million. So they sold about a million watches. Market share exploded to almost 30%. So gosh, that's like, one in three Swiss watches sold is a Rolex. Pretty incredible, right?
mhm,
So how did they expand over that short amount of time? The average price of each Rolex model increased by a lot.
mhm,
But if we look at 2021 versus 2023, in 2023, just a 20% increase in production and watches sold over that. So I think like 1.2 million watches sold last year for Rolex, but that's only a 6% increase in income and only a 1.2% increase in market share.
mhm,
So what does that mean? Pete says, well, Rolex, the days of Rolex leveraging entry level stainless steel sports watches to buy higher end models has run its course. They've kind of switched production to sell the lower end models, right? The average price of each Rolex sold is less than the price increase of their watches in the last 2 years. People are buying more Rolex, 1.2 million versus a million last year, but they're the cheaper, less expensive models, the entry level models, the Explorers, the Air Kings, the OPs, some of the Datejusts. They're getting the market share still, almost 30%, but they're having to work harder to achieve it. You're seeing a lot of people get the call for some of this entry level stuff. Like I got my Air King call pretty quick, and that was 2 years ago. Even now,
mhm,
you're all the time I'm seeing, even like Sky Dwellers and some other
mm,
watches, people are getting them more and more and more. So then he talks about this term I've seen thrown around, talking about this report this year, premiumization, right? That's a lot of the watches driving the market now. The very expensive watches, these brands that entered the top 50, we'll talk about in the next video, Grubel, Force, Patek, RM, Moser. Um,
mhm,
they all sell, few watches, but at very high prices. So that's where we're going. Those brands' average sale price is way above what Rolex is selling their average watch at. So the expansion there is way above Rolex's price point. So what does that mean for Rolex if they're selling a lot of lower priced watches? It means that their market share may go down. No one's dethroning Rolex in this. They're going to be
Hmm.
number one for a long
Hmm.
time. But Pete says, we may see their market share go up to 31 or 32% and then go down as this premiumization sort of keeps going. And then he focuses on the other 3% of the Rolex group, Tudor. Tudor isn't struggling, he doesn't think, but their engine is coughing, right? They
Hmm.
withdrew from the Western market there for a while. They came back in full force. They hit the Morgan Stanley report running. But in the last 3 or 4 years, it's leveled off. And actually, this year, we saw them fall from
Hmm.
15 last year to 17 this year. So they're going backwards, and he's wondering if they're going backwards because entry level Rolex models are more and more available at retail. Why buy a Tudor? He says when you could buy the real thing. And he says, and it's true for the most part, the story of almost every Tudor starts with an earlier Rolex model, right? Just
Uh-huh.
whatever, the Black Bay,
Hmm.
the Black Bay Pro, the Pepsi GMT. So will Tudor if we've hit peak Rolex, have we already seen peak Tudor maybe a few years ago and now they're falling off?
Hmm.
So, will they be as successful if entry level Rolex is easier to get? I just saw a Facebook post before we went on. Somebody was asking the same thing. Why on earth there are people buying Tudor when Rolex is becoming more and more accessible at
Hmm.
this point? So, what do
Hmm.
you think about his thoughts on Rolex and especially what he said about Tudor here?
Let me work backwards. I think so. I'll start with Tudor first. I think possibly what's going on with Tudor is that there might be some Black Bay fatigue, right? Especially here in the States, right? I know,
Yep.
I know Tudor is also very popular in Asia, but it's almost like okay, we've seen another Black Bay again. You know what I mean? And so I think maybe people have it's just run its course, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's still a pretty good seller for them, but it's maybe people are not like waiting to buy these things at retail. I think a lot of people buy Tudor also pre-owned, right?
Yep.
And which this study probably I don't think accounts for. So I think there's good value at for Tudor at pre-owned pricing. And maybe there's a lot of just competition in that price point. I don't I don't know. I think I still haven't really finished my thought on whether a lot of people who buy Tudor are just buying Tudor because they can't get Rolex, or maybe they just like Tudor and they're comfortable with that price point. So like I don't know if there's a correlation there per se. I have to think that through a little bit more. Now going to Rolex, I think I mean he might be right. I mean we might be at peak Rolex here with saturation in market, or maybe they have like some more to go, a little bit more to go. What I find like very very interesting is like they got a lion's share of the market ahead of like conglomerates like the Swatch Group and like Richemont, right? I mean, like there's they're the top dog, right? And it just goes to show you how the marketing like they're the name in the industry, right? You know what I mean? That they're Xerox, right?
Right.
They're just so well known across the world as a form of luxury that there's I mean and then there's other brands too that have that kind of label, but in more of a larger scope like Cartier, like with their jewelry and stuff like that, and I know they're up on the list too. But I'm just it's just an incredible machine that they are now. Whether they're selling more, it sounds like Pete's theory is like they're selling more of the cheaper stuff. I think Maison said on the chat here that people are not upgrading to the precious metal or gem set
Right.
Rolexes, right? Because steel is very popular, right? The steel sports watches are the popular ones there. So maybe they're not going upscale. Um, and I think maybe people who are looking to go upscale, who have the steel Rolexes, are going to like brands like Patek, you know, or AP or whatnot. So interesting stuff. I haven't delved into the report as much as Pete did, but I think Pete did a pretty good job of explaining that into it. What do you think?
Yeah, so Tudor, I wonder if not because they're buying less Tudor, not because they would rather wear Rolex than Tudor, but I think a lot of Tudors, let's be honest, were bought to pad that buying history, right?
Good point. Yeah, for
And
sure.
maybe we only need to buy 1 Tudor
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
to get a Rolex where we used to have to buy 3 or 4,
Yeah,
right? So maybe that's one of the reasons they're going down. We don't have to buy as many to get in the good graces of our authorized dealers to get
yeah,
that stainless
yeah,
steel Rolex. It's easier to get now. So maybe
yeah,
that's a reason. I mean, that could make sense. I think it might be too early to say Tudor's falling off. We'll see what happens in the
yeah.
next year or so. But yeah, it is. And Pete's, I think, said this before too. The amount of watches they sell and the turnover is disproportionate to the amount of media coverage they get. I
Hmm.
think I watched Gringa actually did a video about this today too. Um, and a lot of people, I was looking at the comments, and a lot of people were shocked that Tudor is so low. And a lot of people said the same thing. It's like, boy, you know, you don't hear nearly as much about brands like Breitling or
Yeah,
Tag, and they're
yeah,
both above Tudor.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's like, yeah, it is kind of odd. And I think Pete at one point said Rolex might pay for some of that media coverage that
yeah.
maybe isn't warranted. Versus the amount of money they make and watches they sell. So,
Yeah.
yeah, with Rolex, I think you're right. I think and a lot of the precious metal stuff isn't doing as well in aftermarket value as you can get some of the precious metal Daytonas and everything for right around retail, not that far up ahead in some cases. And the stainless steel stuff is just doing better. So I think people may feel better about having their money in the stainless steel Rolex. So
Yeah.
you never know. Yeah, he could be right about that. Rolex is still king. They're always gonna be king, but
Hmm.
how much of a king they are, I guess, is up for debate in the coming years. It'll be interesting to see. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to wait 2 years for like that detail kind of report,
right.
right? You
I wish
know,
they did
so
top 50 every year. Yeah, I
yeah, yeah,
love the top 50.
yeah. Let's see what some of the other guys say here. More interested on how Cartier took over Omega. Cartier, this is not new
4 years
news.
in a row. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is the
this is not
4th
new
year in a
news.
row.
Yep.
Yep.
Maison, I noticed how Breitling have shot up the rankings since the takeover in 2017. Two-tone Lady Datejust has supposedly been the top-selling Rolex model. Interesting. Um, okay, and so are you ready to pop over to the next part two? Uh,
Yes.
the top 50 Swiss watch brands. Okay, who's in and who is out? Take it away.
My dog's having an episode here,
It's okay.
sorry.
No, no worries.
Thought she had to go to the bathroom, but, she didn't, so I'm just gonna close the door here. Hold on one second.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, live TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he broke it down. He did a part 1, and then, the next day, I think he did a part 2. So, looking at 6 brands that left the top 50 since 2021 and the 6 brands that sort of came in and replaced them. Again, he talks about how the top 50 is a much richer picture of what's going on in the industry than the top 20, and they seem to do that every other year,
Mm,
like we said in the first one. So again, this word premiumization, what does that mean? Prices are pushing up, right? The comparison between the 2021 list and this year's
mhm,
2023 list proves it. The 6 brands that left are entry level, affordable brands, and the brands that replace them are small, boutique, independent brands. So, the brands that left, Titoni, I was surprised they were the top 50.
mm,
Very small brand, sold
mhm,
about 72,000 watches per year with an average price of about 1,350 Swiss francs. Calvin Klein had an average of about 293 Swiss francs per watch. 340,000
mhm,
watches sold. That's not good enough to be in the top 50 anymore. That's out. Victorinox, they're an
mhm,
enthusiast brand. Most of us either have owned them or at least heard of them for sure. They have an average price of about 600 Swiss francs. They sell 230,000 watches per year. Not good enough to be in the top 50 anymore. Maurice Lacroix, they sell about
mm,
70,000 watches per year, and then Bucher, they're out. So Victorinox, Maurice Lacroix, and Bucher are all out. Then he editing suite Pete came in and said Mondane was
mhm,
also in the top 50,
mm.
and now they're out.
Yeah.
as well. They sell about 350,000 watches per year, but at an affordable price, that's not good enough to be in the top
Hmm.
50. So the brands that came in, Louis Vuitton, or Louis Vuitton, as I like to say. Louis Vuitton, they have an average price of about $4,700 Swiss francs per watch. So that's the cheapest brand that came in to replace
Hmm.
these. So that's they sell about 35,000 watches per year. Gerard Perregaux is in the top 50. Average price about 15,000 Swiss francs. They sold 9,500 watches
Mm.
last year. Starting to see a trend. All these brands are replacing brands that sell hundreds of thousands of watches per year. Moser is at 38, I believe, now in the top 50 this year. They have an average price of 37,000 Swiss francs. I thought that was high, but
Mm.
I guess that makes sense. And they only sold 3,500 watches last year.
Hmm.
Parmigiani, again, average price of around 35,000 Swiss francs, 3,000 watches per year. Jacob and Co. is in.
Hmm.
They have an average price of 85,000 Swiss francs. They sold 2,700 last year. And then Grubel Force, average price of 313,000 Swiss francs. They only sold 255 watches last year. And I think
Yeah.
they're 49 or 50. So, yeah, it's funny. Brands that are selling watches $1,000 and under, and hundreds of thousands of them gone from the list.
Hmm.
If you want to be in the top 50 now, you need to be selling at least $15,000 per watch. And, you sell a few thousand of those per year, and that's good enough to get you in the top 50 list now. So he's starting to worry about the data collection for this list a little bit. In the past years, 35 million in turnover per year got you on the top 50. That doesn't seem to be enough anymore, right? Jacob and Co. increased that number at around 35 to over 100 million in 2 years from since 2021. And these other brands have too. Pete doesn't quite believe it's true, though. He's a little skeptical. He thinks the credibility of the Morgan Stanley report has risen. The boutique indie brands who rely on loans and partners and bank loans and everything for funding have seen the value of being mentioned in this report. So he thinks those brands have started to open the books a little bit to reporters and the people who make this list. They're being a little more forthcoming with their
Mm.
reporting, with their earnings. So he doesn't think the growth is this rapid. He thinks they've always been making this much money and they've probably could have been on this list years ago, but they weren't quite forthright with the
Right.
amount of money that they're making. So that's where he sort of ends the video. That's an interesting hypothesis. I have no idea, but it sounds about right because the Swiss
Yeah.
watch brands are very secretive.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be anything. A couple things that stood out to me here, like Drop Pergo only selling 9,500 watches a year.
Yeah,
I'm a fan, but maybe that's why, because I'm a fan of the brand, I find that surprising. Maybe most people do not find that surprising. I think we've seen a trend anyway for higher priced watches over the last couple of years. We've seen price increases, right? Omega price increases have been, Rolex price increases. Many brands are going up market. Zenith going up market with their pricing. So I'm not surprised to see that more of these brands are coming in that are at higher price points. Uh, maybe maybe in a macro sense, right? We can see that the gap between the wealthy and the not wealthy are getting bigger. Maybe the wealthy are going with some of these high priced, independent watchmakers, right? Because maybe they have enough Rolex, right? And now they're focusing on something that's more artisanal, unique. You know what I mean? They're seeing these watches as as an investment, right? You're not going to invest in a $500 or $1,000 Maurice Lacroix, right?
right.
Because that's not really much of an investment. Those prices come down. Google 4C though, something very rare, you see those prices go up. I mean, Moser doesn't do typically well though with investment wise, but I think some of the pieces and some of those brands, you can see that. Um, I don't know why some of these other those brands dropped off. Perhaps this report is in regards to Swiss watchmaking, right? Obviously, they don't consider Japanese watchmakers, right? They don't consider the Grand Seikos and the Seikos of the world, the Citizens of the world, right? The
Right.
Casios of the world, right? Or the German watchmakers, or the micro brands, And so maybe those,
Smartwatches, as,
yeah, smart watches, yeah,
Sympathy for the Bezel said.
maybe
Yeah.
these more kind of affordable pieces that are now more available are taken away from those brands that have dropped off. And so that's also something that stuck in my head. But I think the upmarket in price is really, like what Pete was saying, is probably more accurate, more true than that. So than what I'm thinking. But again, I haven't really dug deep into this report, and just going off of what Peter said. What do you think?
I think that entry level brands long term could be in trouble over, smartwatches.
Mhm,
I think
mm,
that, people will choose, Apple Watch or Garmin
mm,
over some of these. People are always gonna want luxury goods. Even the
yeah,
people that, may wear a smartwatch daily are still gonna invest in that, like, nice watch.
yeah,
So I don't think it's gonna hurt the luxury watch brands, but I think some of the entry level,
yeah,
like, you look even, Tissot is, back in the top 10, but in 2017, they were, like, number 6. Longines was number 4.
yeah.
Like, those brands have are like Longines was 7 and Tissot was 10, replaced by AP, Patek, RM.
Hmm.
So, we're look the investment grade brands
Hmm.
are starting to climb over the entry level, and I
Yeah.
think, you might be right with Seiko and Citizen, but I bet, Apple Watch has a lot to
Oh
do with
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's not gonna touch the uber luxury brands, but yeah, the entry level stuff, there might be some problems there. So I think, yeah, it's something to keep an eye
I
on.
think, yeah, I think all of these play a part, right? Competition at that lower end, thinning out that bottom six at the same time, whether these high end luxury small boutiques, boutique brands, or whether they're opening up the books or people are just finding more cachet in those, and able to afford them, are going towards them, and then adding to the overall number that helps push these other guys. Like I think there's a whole lot of things at play here,
Right.
and it's not just one. Now, one maybe outweigh the other. One reason may outweigh another reason. That's totally understandable and acceptable. But I think there's a lot of things going on here. Very interesting stuff.
One entry level brand shot way up, went insane. I don't even know where they weren't in the top 20 last year, and now they're 13. Swatch. They
Mm,
sold, and that's, based on, crazy,
yeah.
pop culture
Yep. Yep.
shifting
Yep.
watch, the Moon Swatch, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They sold 5.8 million
Yeah.
watches in, 2023,
Hmm.
rumored 2 million Moon Swatches.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think that's an anomaly.
right.
Unless
Yeah, that's what I'm
unless they
saying.
unless they
The
capture that, right, unless they capture
Yep,
that lightning in the bottle every year,
yep.
we'll probably see them come back down or drop
That's
off
the
the list. But
only entry level brand that shut up, and
mm,
it's, the Moon Swatch is a
yeah,
force of nature. When that drops back off, you're right, they will, unless they can pull another
uh,
trick out of the bag.
exactly. I mean, they do have a catalog with all these other brands. It's possible. I mean, it's
But that's the argument for doing it, though. It
yeah.
may, upset Omega collectors and people who feel like, but look, it's worked. Now we
Mhm,
just have to follow it up. I don't think
yeah,
the 50 fathoms, swatch did that.
right,
I don't know that that was that big of a hit, but, now they need something else. They need to do a Seamaster, a Bond Seamaster, I think, something like that. Again, that's something that has to really just shake the foundations and
yeah,
get people to buy these in mass, and unfortunately, that may be how Swatch has to survive, which kinda
yeah,
stinks. Like,
yeah,
they have to be essentially be a novelty brand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll see. All right, hey, let's move into our last video of the evening. Um, just one more watch. Top five affordable wedding watches. Now, This to me is interesting in several ways because of my personal history, and we'll get to that and what watch you picked for your wedding, and in the chat, please let us know what your wedding watch was. Anyway, so Jody, coming off his uncle's wedding, came up with the idea. Is like, wait, like what, a video, doing a video of like top five affordable wedding watches. And so, I think he had a necklace. I think he wore one when he got married because his wife, or soon to be wife, gifted that, and that was number one reason. Or number one in the top five was um, a watch your future partner has already bought you. So that's affordable, right? Because you hadn't had to shell out any kind of money to get that. Moving along, second, just looking at your box, is there an heirloom piece? Is there something like, that was handed down to you by your father or grandfather? Another way to have an affordable selection for a wedding watch, and you don't have to rush out or put any pressure on yourself right before your wedding to buy something, especially if you have it in the box, or if somebody can give that to you. Now going to the picks, right? So number three, his actual first pick is the Orient Bambino. There's so many different variations of the Orient Bambino, so many different sizes, so many different colorways, and it's a great watch for a groom, for a bride, for the bridal party, even if you wanted to gift that as well to your to people in your party. Number four, he goes to with an interesting pick, the Tissot quartz. He says they last forever, and most people, they don't want to have to deal with a manual wine watch. You just have the battery. It's always set. It's always ready to go, and that's what's great about the Tissot quartz. Throwing in a Swiss watch in there, and then finally, number five, the Seiko Presage cocktail. Again, so many different variations, so many different sizes. If you buy right, you can spend somewhere between 250 to $400, and it looks like great on the guys, on the girls, and the wedding party and whatnot. And so, for me, it's a great and interesting topic. I don't want to delve into like necessarily his choices. Although if you choose to claim that's totally fine, but more so like wanting to know something about yourself, about you, Clayton. What was your wedding? Were you into watches at the time?
No,
And no,
I
no,
was
okay.
not. Yeah.
So, did you wear the Garmin?
No, no, I did not. The Garmin's back then, I got married in 2011. Garmin's were not attractive to wear. Now they look a little more like actual watches or G-Shocks, but back then, the Garmin I wore back then, no, you would not. You could not put it would not fit under a cuff. My wife actually, before we got married, got me a Skagen, the very thin, like fashion watch,
Yeah.
but I wore that. I still have it. I haven't worn it in a very long time, but yeah, it was nice. It was very thin. I remember a couple people that night actually commented on it being a handsome watch. That's something
Yeah.
you say only about watches. It seems like, oh, what a handsome watch.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
really get that compliment about shoe. What handsome shoes or anything. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so it was a very thin Scoggin on a mesh, and I wore that. That was kind of my only watch when I had like a regular job before I started my business.
Yeah.
And once really stopped wearing that once I started my dog running business because it was a little dressy and fancy, and I had
Sure.
like no occasion to wear it, and it wasn't something it was special to me because she bought it for me,
Yeah.
but I didn't really like wearing it when I didn't have to. I wasn't really a watch geek, so that's when I transitioned to kind of wearing Garmin all the time.
So okay, so let's pose it this way. If you and Mrs. Watchdog Podcast decided to renew your vows, right? And now you're watching. You got a collection. Which watch in your collection? What would you wear for that special occasion?
Oh, I don't know. I'd probably wear the Moser because I tend to if I were to dress up, I think it would probably be something blue. I actually have a
Yeah.
really nice blue suit. That boy, last time I wore was like a wedding, but like 5 years ago was like my first tailored suit. So the Moser would actually go amazingly well with that. I'd probably have to get it tailored to
Mm,
I don't have the same figure I had at 40 as I have
yeah.
at 45. Maybe like a little let it out a little bit. But, yeah, so that's, the watch I would probably wear. But if we renewed our vows, I think I would, do maybe what Jody did instead of I don't wear a wedding band. I just don't like to wear rings. I don't
Yeah.
wear she knows I'm committed to her, but I don't wear a ring. So I would probably ask her in lieu of a ring to buy me a watch, instead,
Hmm.
because I would probably buy her a new, engagement wedding band
Sure.
or add diamonds to her existing one. I actually
Yeah.
did that last year
Ah,
for our anniversary. So yeah, I think in exchange for that, I would ask her to maybe buy me a watch and I would actually pick it out.
yeah. Yeah. Very
Yeah,
nice.
that would probably be something, luxury-ish, not
Yeah.
crazy, but maybe equivalent to how much I spent on her ring. And
Yeah.
that's what I would wear then.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had been married before, and that was a debacle with the marriage, and also the watch that I bought myself before the wedding, about a week or two before. I went with the infamous Tourneau Chrono Aurora
That was right
Chrome.
before your wedding?
About a week. It was a week or two before I went in. I
Oh,
went in to go buy a Rolex. I wanted. I think I wanted it. It was a Submariner. I was like going for. Yeah, it was a Submariner, it was a Tourneau boutique, and man, I got mowed down by the best Tourneau salesman in the history. Like, he's probably in the Mount Rushmore of Tourneau salesmen at that office, because he sold me the Tourneau Gotham Chrono, and instead he talked me out of the Submariner and into that watch. So that marriage didn't last long. The watch lasted longer than the marriage, but I ended up taking a huge haircut on that piece. Eventually, I sold it, but when I got married to Mrs. Legs, I already had the Gerard Perregaux, and it was on a leather strap for some reason when I bought it, and it had run its course. It was looking terrible, and I wasn't going to buy myself a watch for the wedding. But she, part of like a wedding gift, like she got me like this great guitar, and
nice.
then she actually got me a Gerard Perregaux rubber strap with the plane buckle, Gerard Perregaux, and so no cheap, I mean, this was like, she spent good money on it, and so so in a sense, like, she that became the wedding watch, part of the wedding gift, and so I ended up wearing this watch for when I got married, and it matched perfectly. I had like a tux, but with a white jacket and black pants and a back tie, and it looked everything looked great, and it was a perfect watch, perfect wife, and a perfect wedding. So no complaints there. But chat, let us know what your wedding watch was. Let's see here. We got the orange hand. Only had one watch when I got married. Tag Heuer F1. That saw me through all my 20s. Wore it with a tux and didn't think twice about it. Good for you.
Right.
Good for you. Nilo. Hey, Nilo, what's going on? Hey, Skating had some good looking watches, he's saying. Um,
I should wear
um,
that sometime. I always get the battery changed,
yeah,
because I don't want it to sit and, like, batteries corrode. So I check on it every so often. If it's stopped, I'll be sure to change out the battery as soon as I
yeah,
can. But
yeah. Um, Ms. Olsen, I don't think people bother about whether or not watches are sporty or dressy for black tie or formal occasions these days. I totally agree. Though
yeah,
a Dayglow yellow G-Shock might take it a bit far, but
they
to each
just they just get fancy bracelets for their Apple Watches.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's what they do.
Um, for formal, I go with the Moser Pioneer Madritz Swiss Red. Nice.
Nice.
The red is made more subtle by the fume and wouldn't stand out too much. Underachieving watching, he never gets tired of that Gotham story. Caliber he likes the story too. MD Chan is saying, I hope my wife never buys me a watch. You can't know how much these things really cost. Hey Rick, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Yeah,
Yeah, my
yes,
wife already knows. She knows.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, well, hey, look, um, we made it.
Yeah, we
Even
went through
with
fast tonight.
we went through it pretty quickly tonight. And hey, you got anything coming up on the podcast?
I don't know, still haven't done one.
Yeah, yeah,
Still haven't done one, but, yeah, I'm still still thinking about it here
yeah,
and there, but,
yeah,
yeah, just, focusing on, work's been,
yeah.
busy and, haven't been feeling all that awesome, so
Yeah.
hoping to, just get that corrected and then,
Oh yeah,
hopefully
I'm with
feels
you.
good enough to do the yeah, same with you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't put out a video in a couple weeks or stream in a couple weeks. This is the first one. That bronchitis really knocked me out. So, but we'll have a stream on this Tuesday. Getting back to the regular schedule, getting back to the swing of things. Hopefully, I'm on the up and up. Still have the cough, as you can hear. Anyway, guys, chat, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Clayton, again, thanks for co-hosting
Yeah,
as
thank you.
always, and we'll see you next Sunday with another episode of Watch Soup. Take care, guys.
Alright, take care, guys. Have a good week.